Hey everybody, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here, and today we're going to be talking about Apple, but not just Apple, because now we have proof, or more proof, that we need ownership rights over the content that we purchase online. And here's what's going on. And this is coming from Apple Insider, and I thought this was really interesting. Now, Apple has been hit with a lawsuit alleging that its media services terms and conditions, which permit the company to terminate an Apple ID, are both unlawful and unconscionable. Now, this complaint was filed this past Tuesday in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, and it's going after Apple's services clause that states a user with a terminated Apple ID cannot access media content that they've purchased. And so you know where I'm going with this. Now, through its terms and conditions, Apple retains the right to terminate an Apple ID, and more than that, the lawsuit claims that Apple can terminate an account based on mere suspicion. According to the lawsuit, and I quote, Apple's unlawful and unconscionable clause as a prohibited de facto liquidated damages provision, which is triggered when Apple suspects its customers have breached its terms and conditions. Additionally, the complaint claims that Apple, or rather that users with Apple devices, will find their products, quote, substantially diminished in value if their Apple IDs are terminated, since they won't be able to access their Apple services or purchase more content. Now, the plaintiff in this case, a man named Matthew Price, reportedly spent almost $25,000 on content attached to his Apple ID. When Apple terminated his ID for alleged violations of their terms and conditions, he lost access to about $25,000 of content. Obviously, this is something he's purchased over, I would imagine, a good deal of time. Now, according to this complaint, the $25,000 worth of media included apps, in-app purchases, programs, and platform extensions, as well as related services. The plaintiff also alleges that Apple prevents users from accessing unused funds attached to their account. So, for example, he had $7 left and an iTunes credit. He no longer has access to that $7. Now, the lawsuit doesn't specify why Price's account was terminated. However, it does claim that Apple shut down his ID, quote, without notice, explanation, policy, or process. It goes on to claim that Apple's conduct, specifically the clause and resulting terminations are, quote, unfair, unlawful, fraudulent, and illegal. This also alleges that Apple is in violation of several consumer regulations in the state of California, where Mr. Price is based. Now, this lawsuit is seeking a class action status, and essentially they are looking for other people that have had their Apple IDs terminated and therefore have lost access to the content that they have purchased. It's asking for a jury trial seeking permanent injunction, barring Apple from engaging in the allegedly unlawful behavior, restitution of the funds lost for the account termination, damages, and of course attorney fees as well, which is probably going to be more than $25,000. Now, I think this underscores overall a few different things that need to be, I think, set in stone for consumer rights, not just here in the United States, but ideally also for the world. And the first point I want to make here is that you, as the consumer, should have the right to own any music, TV, movies, services, etc. that you purchase, not rent, from Apple, Google, Amazon, and any other entity offering this as well. This means you have the right to download those TV, movies, or music, basically DRM or digital rights management free, as a backup, and then play them as you see fit. And I will talk about DRM in a future point here. The second point I think we need to have is that any apps that you purchase from Apple or Google should make that app unlocked and for use with other platforms where possible. Some apps are made specifically for Apple, so they're only going to work on an Apple, same with Android. But for those that have cross-compatibility, meaning the publisher has put it up in the App Store for Apple and Google Play for Google's Android, it should be unlocked for both. Too many people have to buy an app on Apple or Google, and then when they switch to the other platform, meaning like, oh, I'm ditching my Apple and moving to Android, or I'm ditching my Android and moving to Apple, they have to repurchase many of those apps. Not all. Some are very heavily cloud-based for logins, in which case you're just downloading, logging in, and going. But many apps basically require you to purchase them again, and I don't think that should be the case since you've already paid that person once now, or that publisher once. Now, companies, and this is my third point, companies like Apple or Amazon or Google should retain the right to kill your ID, but they should not be able to erase you from their system. So for example, this person like Matthew Price should have been allowed access to his account so that he could see his existing items, but Apple would then retain the right to prevent him from purchasing more products or services or whatever it is, and using systems outside of his ability to access and use his purchases, meaning they can't shut him down. So he can use his phone, he can log into his Apple ID, he can see the 10 movies he's already bought, but when he goes to buy movie number 11, he simply doesn't have access to the App Store. He's shut out, but the existing products work because he purchased them. Either that or they have to refund his money in full, including any in-app purchases, which Apple will never ever do. The last point I want to make here is that companies, I think, still have the right to put on digital rights management, or DRM, as I mentioned in the first point. However, that DRM needs to be extended to basically any device that person owns. So if I want to move something from my Apple ID to my Android, that's fine, or Android to Apple, that's fine. The DRM can still apply. If I legally try to give basically my content to somebody else, even though I've purchased the rights to do this. So I think that's something that we have to consider. And I'm flexible on that point in the sense that I understand this is how a lot of artists and this is how a lot of publishers and app creators, especially small business, make their money. And so if you're just able to, let's say, give somebody something without them paying for it, you're actually harming the artist that creates it. But at the same token, it's your right to do with as you will. If I go buy a physical book from a bookstore, read it, and then give it to a friend who then didn't purchase that book, I'm essentially doing the same thing. So I don't necessarily know how we stop that. But the point is that I don't know what this person did. The lawsuit doesn't specify why he was shut off from this, but even if he was in gross violation of something, he still purchased these things. He still has a right to own this. Therefore, the terms and conditions for Apple should be invalid as a consumer right. Same with Google, same with Amazon. And we've seen multiple cases where somebody has purchased a book on an Amazon Kindle or purchased a book, purchased a movie on Amazon, and then the publisher pulls out. They have a disagreement with Amazon. They say, we're no longer going to sell our books on that platform. And Amazon just reaches into your Kindle from the internet and deletes the book that you purchased without notification, without refund. That would basically be like them walking over to your house and saying, hey, that book, that physical book you purchased from our bookstore, yeah, we want it back. They can't do that. We need consumer laws for this. This lawsuit really underscores it. And this guy might have been grossly violating Apple's terms and conditions. And in which case, I'm all for Apple, but I'm also all for this person basically getting access to what he paid for. That is his right. And so that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.